We're hearing a lot of things about Omicron. Symptoms are milder, patients are younger. The Moderna CEO has said that it's already probably in every single country. Given what we know about antibody levels right now, how worried are you about Omicron and the state of the virus?
Well, Emily, thanks for having me on. I think worried or optimistic are luxuries that the last 18 months should have got us kind of to begin to move away from, as opposed to being determined to protect ourselves and very vigilant. And so I definitely think that this threat is something that we have not seen before. The number of variations, mutations on this virus are surprising. They're not theoretically impossible, but extremely rare. And so we have to take it for the serious threat that it poses. Now, we have a lot better weapons to fight back against it than we did 18 months ago. But that I think that, again, worrying, we always should be worried when we're under attack. I think it's what we do about it that matters.
So what should we do about it? And what will Moderna, for example, have to do about it? Will this strain elude the current vaccine? And what are the challenges if that's the case?
Well, Moderna issued a statement on Friday afternoon with a comprehensive plan that we already have prepared for this eventuality that comprises a number of steps. One, quite rapidly verify whether the immune response that a boosted patient will receive from our vaccine is sufficient to protect against infection from this Omicron variant. That will be known in the next couple of weeks, we said. Second, we have activated additional tests for multivariant vaccines that we've already got under testing. In this case, the original 1273 plus the beta variant, and then the 1273 plus the delta. So we're already in human trials there, and we've already got data. And that might be the very quick follow-on line of defense in case the 1273 alone does not do the trick. And then, of course, we've already started, and we've said, a program that we think within 60 days or so will take us to a place where we have a fully variant-specific, Omicron-specific vaccine should we need it. But this is, I don't think there's going to be one solution to this. There's going to be a number of defensive steps that we'll take to make sure that we're fully protected.
What's the fastest possible timeline that a Moderna Omicron booster could be available?
Availability to the public is a function of regulatory approval under emergency use, and that will be largely determined by the FDA, which I'm sure will look at the data, the facts on the ground, the level of threat, and decide how much additional data it needs for this sequence variant to be able to allow it to be more broadly available. I can't speculate on that. I think the piece of it that we control, we've said, Stéphane Bancel, the CEO, said, we think we're in a position to do, based on the 10 years of platform development we've done already with mRNA and mRNA vaccines, I think we're in an ideal position to respond within the kind of 60-day time frame.
Talk to us about the new science involved here and what we know about antibodies and antibody levels right now and how that's informing your work.
Well, it's a very good question, Emily, because I think this whole question of antibody levels is a very underexplored, or I would say undermeasured aspect of this pandemic. We talk about antigen testing to see if you've been infected, but actually what you really want to know is how strong is the antibody response in your body in response, let's say, to a vaccine. And that's something that we have relatively little activity in, other than the fact that the people are publishing papers, academic centers showing very strong correlation between antibody levels and vaccine breakthrough, so that the higher the antibody levels very clearly correlates to better protection. And of course, the FDA is making decisions for booster approvals and the like, all based on antibody levels. So I think that as we enter this third phase of the pandemic, hopefully not a very serious one, but it could well be, we need to be mindful of how the virus is varying itself and how our antibody level is adequate or not to protect us. And it's really those two measurements that have to happen side by side. And when all the manufacturers have said over the next 2 weeks, we'll tell you if our vaccine is still effective, essentially it will be by measuring neutralizing antibody levels against this new threat. And I think that should be more broadly available and more broadly deployed, because let's face it, if we do have a big threat, we're going to have to take protection in terms of masks and separation and curtailing travel. But importantly, we're going to want to make sure whatever boosters we have, we make available to the most vulnerable. Well, the most vulnerable turned out to be the ones that have the lowest levels of antibodies. That's where the vulnerability comes from.
Noubar, I know you got to get to another meeting, but one last quick question. Do you see the need for a COVID shot like we have the flu shot year after year, or will variants start to become milder and milder? Like, which way is this disease going to evolve?
You know, Emily, it's an interesting thing. On the one hand, we know more about this disease than all other diseases combined in history, I believe, in terms of just the sheer number of people that it's impacted and that we're treating and learning from. On the other hand, we really don't have good experience of how a pandemic becomes an endemic threat. And that transition is what we're all guessing. So it's really guesswork to say, is this going to become tamed and become like a common cold, or is it going to be like the flu where there's a seasonal vaccine? I'd say there's a third alternative that we haven't seen before. And so we have to be pragmatic. Look, this is the first time you and I spoke. I said, this is an evolutionary battle between a pathogen, a virus that is attacking our social nature, and the collective immune system of humanity. That battle continues. We've added technology, we've added behavioral changes, but at the end of the day, that battle will end up where it ends up, and we have to be ready for all eventualities. I've said publicly that I think more likely than not, it ends up looking like a seasonal booster every year, but there's no high certainty to that because we're in uncharted territory.